Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to your Board of Commissioners February 24th, 2026 workshop. We're going to start off with Paul and Collaborative will provide an update regarding long-term recovery efforts after the 2023 tornado. Pastor Warren East will give us the update. Welcome, sir.
Hey, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, City Council and Mayor. So thank you so much for the opportunity to come in today and share a little bit. Really is what our final report for tornado recovery from 2023. I do have the opportunity as well to share a slide. I want to let you know that by the time this is all done, you'll also receive a full report, which is 4 pages, but I didn't want to do all that today. So I just want to take time just to give you an idea of what the Collaborative and VOAD was able to accomplish over the last few years. My name is Warren, and I am one of the pastors at City Church here in Griffin, and also serve as the chair for Spalding Collaborative currently, as well as the chair for VOAD, which is Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, and is really the response of volunteers here in our community coming together, churches, nonprofit organizations, citizens, to just impact our community when tragedy happens. We're a network that exists, nonprofits, churches, civil groups, businesses, schools, and government agencies. We actually mobilized beginning back in the day in 2011, if you were here, and tornadoes actually hit Griffin again during COVID, and then reconvened in 2023 after the tornadoes hit. Today, again, serves as kind of our final report for what we were able to accomplish here in our community from the disaster that struck in 2023. I'm sure that many of you can remember where you were January 12th of 2023. I remember it was my day to pick up the kids and my wife was at work. I was at home and something seemed a little eerie that day. I stepped outside and was like, something's not right. At that point, all the warnings and stuff began to show up. I called my wife. I said, where are you? She said, I'm almost home. I'm on 16, getting close to McDonough Road. It was at that point I lost connection with my wife. And it was also at that point I heard something that many of us who have been through a tornado know sound like a train. At that point I took my kids, we were in the laundry room, we got pillows all over us, and we're saying a prayer for my wife at that point. Worry began to set in. Making sure she was okay was one of my top priorities, and making sure my kids were okay. It was about 10 minutes later, she called me back and said, hey, I'm okay, but I'm pretty sure I was just in a tornado. There at McDonough Road at 16, if you've seen some of that damage, you can still see the trees. This is where a semi flipped, and she was right there in that space. And so we all have memories and moments that we can remember the disaster that took place here in Spalding County and Griffin. Some say there were 5 tornadoes, some say there were 3 tornadoes, but we also had an EF3 that was 155 miles per hour strike our community, traveling nearly 32 miles here. The impact in our community was great. Debris removal, emergency response costs exceeded $15 million. Many families were left without shelter and a place that was safe. Our immediate response here in Griffin started with groups like Samaritan's Purse and Team Rubicon, Georgia Baptist Disaster Relief, cleared trees and tarp roofs. American Red Cross and Salvation Army provided meals, provided shelter. A distribution center was set up at the current City Church location where we were able to serve 1 million pounds of goods, and also see 1,000 volunteers come together to impact our community in immediate response. It wasn't long that state and federal support came into our community, and they were able to help different citizens here through FEMA and through GEMA. 385 renters and 194 homeowners received FEMA assistance. Local response was led by our city, by our county, by our GEMA office, and Chief Glenn Polk. It wasn't long that eventually, through VOAD, the Resource Allocation Committee was formed, where we met weekly for 3 years, every week, reviewing verified survivor needs and allocating resources through trusted community leaders and partners. Our early financial response, I'm actually going to go back just a little bit. I do want to share, I think it's important just to see our committee that was formed. Mary Birchfield from Promise Place, Cindy Jones from Chamber of Commerce, myself, Lenita Lloyd with Salvation Army, Katie Pash with the Lutheran Disaster Response, Miss Lynn Ray with Habitat for Humanity, Miss Eula Redding with Griffin Housing Authority, Mr. Butch Sutton from First Baptist, Miss Joy Walker Harps from the NAACP, and also Regina and Tony with the Collaborative. It really was an incredible group who committed weekly to meet to help respond with our community. We saw $137 come in donations from our community, and also were able to take $22,000 left from the 2011 tornado recovery and began to meet urgent needs. In 2023 alone, $79,000 helped 39 households with rent, utilities, food, transportation, and work equipment. We also invested in training and strengthening our team to help with disaster response. It didn't take long for us to move to long-term recovery. In October 2023, we shifted from immediate responses to rebuilding. We had a trained case manager, which are the pictures that you see on the screen, that began to assess needs, a construction manager who began to assess the actual situation in homes and help coordinate volunteers and contractors. Funds were allocated for repairs and for rebuilding. The continued recovery support happened through long-term recovery through the Salvation Army. In 2024, additional disaster case management support expanded through Salvation Army and through GEMA contracts. New staff and construction analysts strengthened long-term recovery efforts. Training workshops equipped the community for ongoing recovery. We saw many funding partners still come together. Partners like UMCOR, which is the United Methodist Committee on Relief, Lutheran Disaster Response, Catholic Charities, Convoy with Hope, local churches like First Baptist City Church, and also St. John Lutheran Church all came together to continue the support so we can continue to meet the needs of families. One thing that's misunderstood a lot of times in this kind of response is that many families didn't find out for 18 months that they did not receive the help they needed, whether that was through FEMA or whether that was through their insurance. Many of them uninsured, some did not have the response from their insurance that they hoped for that was required for actual rebuilding. Our long-term recovery team from October 2023 to December 2025 helped with 28 households and funded 323,500 repairs. Over 5,000 volunteers hours were contributed, close to $100,000 in-kind donations were received, and almost just over $500,000 in resources were placed towards recovery. One major home project involved 8 nonprofits and 3 volunteer teams. We saw the power of volunteers come together through 2023 and 2025. They contributed 4,500 hours of skilled labor. RAC members meeting weekly also contributed more than 500 hours, and the value of just volunteer hours alone was close to $180,000. Volunteers help reduce costs and allow us to help more families. We got to serve the most vulnerable, those that were uninsured, underinsured, seniors, veterans, families with children in special need households. One of our milestones as a resource allocation committee and VOAD was to see an 80-year-old veteran in a newly rebuilt home after a year of challenges. His words reflect many. I've never been given anything in my whole life. Why are all these people showing up to help me? I can tell you a really quick story and then I'm going to finish up. This specific gentleman, I remember going to visit his home and a tree had fallen and he had lost pretty much everything, but being an 80-year-old veteran, he didn't have much. To all my people in the room that are code, just close your ears for a moment, please. I remember walking into his house and in the middle of his room was a small metal bowl where he was burning wood to stay warm in his home. All of his windows open so that the smoke would not stay in his house, and immediately we said, we've got to do something now. This was the stories of those families and individuals that we saw throughout our time from 2023 to 2025. In April 24, HUD awarded Georgia $12 million to 7 counties, with Spalding County receiving 80% of that. Even though our time as a resource allocation committee and long-term recovery is done, we are thankful that this opportunity exists for our community. We encourage you to continue to spread the word that there's still opportunities for families who are homeowners that are struggling from tornado recovery to still apply and still receive help. As you can see on the screen, as we look at the coordination that came together with volunteers, with the resources financially that came in, we saw $679,904 contributed to our community to help with tornado recovery. We were able to assist 39 households, repair and restore 28 homes, see thousands of volunteer hours, and significant in-kind contributions. Long-term recovery is not just about dollars, it's about partnership and compassion and commitment. Together we rebuilt homes, we restored dignity, and reminded our neighbors they are not alone. It's been an immense privilege for our team to serve our community. And we want to say thank you to our city, Many conversations along the way happened to figure out how to stay in code and continue to help families. And I want to say a special thanks to Jessica, our city manager, who also sat with us and just allowed us to say, hey, here's what we are dealing with. What is the best avenue? And so thank you for how you serve our community. Thank you for letting us partner with you to make our community a better place and to help those who went through such a hard time with the 2023 tornadoes. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Warren. And Mayor, we do, Michelle actually had an update from Diego, who is handling the CDBG DR grant with DCA. We do have about 400 applications, and we are currently at 62% of applications within Spalding County. They do want us to get at that 80%. So they are asking sort of how we get more applications in. We're trying to figure out another communications class, so we'll get with Danielle to figure that out. But just wanted y'all to know we are still able to accept applicants at this time. So if you know anybody who is still looking, please let us know.
And Warren, I want to personally thank you from our board and from our community. The way City Church stepped up for a relief center, collection center, and distribution center, right in the middle of, we know we're in the transition of getting your property there on North 5th Street. It was a true testimony of compassion and grace, and we're very, very appreciative of what you continue to do the last 3 years. It's hard to look back and see Griffin. It's bigger and better from that occurrence that happened, and without your leadership, we would not be where we're at right now today. So thank you very much. Ms. Kelsey Carney.
All right, welcome everybody.
We're going to move into solid waste ordinance now.
Yes,
You're ready to
moving
roll.
into solid waste ordinance.
Wonderful. So discuss proposed changes to operational services of the solid waste department. Welcome. Look forward to hearing this.
So today we're actually going to focus a little bit more on the ordinance. I'm going to kind of give an overview first. So we have started to refer to this project as Solid Waste Solutions. This is one portion of the Solid Waste Solutions projects that are kind of under that umbrella. This is the ordinance portion. So to give a recap, in March 2025, staff appeared here before all of you to make a proposal regarding the future of yard waste services. We noted that our current ordinance makes residential service, including yard waste, mandatory for all residential property, that includes single family and multifamily. Staff proposed that policy be enforced with limited exceptions, and the board consensus was to proceed with that proposal. We, however, identified some inconsistencies in the solid waste ordinance versus solid waste operations that required evaluation, and we recommended delaying that enforcement until staff could propose a comprehensive ordinance and operational change. Following that, we ended up forming the Solid Waste Solutions Committee, which included employees from Solid Waste, IT, GIS, Customer Service Code, and Management Services. We developed a list of common concerns and complaints made by citizens, and that's how we came up with this umbrella term of Solid Waste Solutions. So under that umbrella, again, is our internal operations, our actual ordinance, as well as what needs to be done in the future to be able to shore up this service as a utility. And then on December 9th, I came before all of you to provide some updates on those projects. The consensus was to proceed with most of staff's projects as they were presented, including the ordinance revisions using the service ideas that were proposed. However, the board requested that residential recycling service be removed from the solid waste ordinance rather than limited to just OCC. So based on that, that is how the ordinance that was on the agenda has been, or the draft of the ordinance has been proposed to all of you. So the goal today is to receive feedback on that proposed draft, discuss adoption and implementation schedule, because this will be a little bit different than our usual ordinance adoption, and then provide updates on any other solid waste solutions projects if requested, so we can update you, but you don't want to hear me talk all day. So that will be upon request if you have anything that you would like me to focus on. I did provide a lot of these slides so that we would have reference points, so we may be going a little bit back and forth, but it's really, I would like this to be commission-led. I want to focus on the things that you guys think are important, that you think are sticking points. So feel free to tell me where I need to go and what you want to hear about. Again, as part of that sort of recap, our current service options include a vast menu of solid waste services, and I will let you know this actually does not even include all of them. I discovered that when I was presenting or preparing this presentation, but that includes residential curbside, yard waste, backdoor service, your shared rate versus your residential rates. I mean, the list goes on. Having that menu of services is sort of like being in a restaurant, having too many things on your menu for people to order. Your kitchen can't keep up, and so you don't do anything well because you're trying to do too many things okay. So that leads to those inconsistencies and errors. It lowers the quality of service, and it makes it where people are constantly calling and saying, why am I not receiving the service that I believe that I'm paying for? So in order to present this, our suggestion was that we really emphasize the fact that we are a combined utility. We need to start acting like it. So we need to establish uniformity with regard to each type of service. The customer should be able to add on but not opt out or receive piecemeal solid waste services. It hinders our ability to provide that service. And then your service type ultimately is determined by your customer and property type, so whether it's residential versus commercial, as well as your commercial collection need. So we said this a lot in December, it's about collection, not container. It seems a little bit complicated until you get into how the rate structures work, and we try to be very detailed in this draft on how those rates were to be determined using, a rate structure that can be understood and utilized by not only solid waste but customer service as well as the customer. So our proposal includes the following list of proposed service options, and this is comprehensive unlike the previous list. So we have residential curbside service, which includes yard waste, apartment service, commercial curbside service, downtown commercial service, standard commercial service, which is your dumpster and your roll-offs, industrial service, collection from county residents, which is handled in a separate portion of the ordinance, roll-off rentals for bulk disposal. Those are not your regular collection services. Those are sort of, I have a large demolition project I want to do and I want to contact City of Griffin to utilize a roll-off. I'm moving and I have a lot of stuff to throw away. I want to, order a roll-off. Landfill dumping, which includes your yard waste, and C&D, which is your construction and demolition debris, and then transfer station dumping, which is capable of collecting household garbage, furniture, mattresses, things of that nature. So the add-on service options that we were talking about include your backdoor service. That is an additional monthly fee that will be added rather than making that a separate service. It's very difficult to track, especially because you do have to be sort of locked into this as an option. You have to be able to provide documentation from your medical provider before you can receive this service. And so making it a completely separate service type made it very difficult to track moving people back. It makes it very difficult for us to kind of know what a customer needs on a particular street. If we just note the add-on, it can be added or removed at any time. We did add that the city also reserves the right to require backdoor service for customers located on properties with unique features that render standard collection infeasible or insufficient. And that is really, like we talked about last time, we have a lot of unique properties in the city. There are certain private areas and private roads where our ability to enforce what the street looks like and who parks on the street is limited because it's private. And so that means that if we have people who aren't complying or operating in a manner where our trucks can get up and down, it can be very difficult. In the past, a lot of times that has resulted in your roll carts, but the same thing over your dumpsters, but the same thing can be said if someone's parking on the street. We can't get in to provide that service. So we may need to come up with unique options if you have a large dumping area or an area that can't be managed because of that private access. That could be another example of when that backdoor service might be required. So this just allows us to evaluate the properties as they are. The service itself is the same. The only difference is the customer's need and how we meet that need. Additional add-on services include special handling, which operationally, internally will be changing, but ultimately there's very little change to how we're handling special handling now. Additional containers, which can be ordered and provided upon request. And then a return trip fee, which is new from the last time that we met in December. So this would allow the city to charge a return trip fee if we can provide documentation, which is a photo and video or video, that at the time of collection that the cart was inaccessible. So the proposal from Solid Waste is that we do a $35 return trip fee for trash carts, $75 for dumpsters, and $125 for roll-offs. Ultimately, every time we take a truck out, it increases the chance of liability. We're using additional gas, we're using additional manpower, potentially resulting in overtime. So there is a cost to that, and that needs to be recognized and noticed. Through Samsara and the internal sort of operational changes that we are doing with regard to service confirmation and routing, that will be something that we believe we will be able to enforce. But the only time that will be added is when we are prepared to provide documentation that that was the case. So.
Kelsey, does this happen frequently? Is that a common occurrence?
Yes. All right, and then recycling. So this is an updated proposal from what we discussed last time. So Article 3 is your main recycling section for residential that I'd like to focus on. That is on page 28 and 30 of the ordinance draft that was presented. If adopted, collection of the residential recycling would no longer be offered, nor would residential recycling be required. So as of right now, it's not just offered, it is required. Citizens will be able to dispose of OCC, which is your old corrugated cardboard, at the transfer station if they wish to recycle it. There will also be centralized dumpsters throughout the city that are open for commercial use that could also be used for residential drop-off. The transfer station would not accept any other type of material for recycling that would only be OCC. I have a picture in here we'll show you later. We really need to be reserving the floor in the transfer station for the volume of OCC that we're getting and the volume that would be required to recycle your plastics and aluminum. We wouldn't be able to create, like the collection centers used to have, separate areas because there's no market for them, and they would potentially be contaminated, before we would even have the opportunity to find someone willing to take them. We don't want to be dishonest. Ultimately, what happens with those types of materials if they're not bought is that they end up at the landfill. And so we want to be as honest as possible. We're really only capable of recycling OCC. So OCC must be free of contamination in food, and that is spelled out in the ordinance as well. We would also like to provide some educational guidelines once this is sort of getting off the road again so that everybody who is wanting to be able to recycle knows how to do so properly. Commercial recycling of OCC would still be required. That is what it currently says in the ordinance. That's what's currently written in here. That there's no substantive change with regard to that. Your private haulers would be required to report the amount of OCC recycled at the end of every quarter and at the end of every year. Again, that's a current requirement. It hasn't been enforced, but we have some ideas about how to do that in collaboration with our permitting process through planning and development. And we added a violation for that section because really there was no enforcement mechanism in there to begin with for that compliance. So if it was violated, it would carry a fine of up to $8,000, which is the standard maximum fee for most citations under section 1-12. And this would help with enforcement of that commercial OCC recycling. Again, there would be, education, and we can use a lot of the actual hauler fees that are for the permitting could actually be used for education or potential rebate programs. There's other communities that are doing that that have some very interesting processes for how they encourage their commercial entities to be able to recycle. So a commercial OCC update. So this was the picture that I showed you last time. I'm happy to say that the transfer station did its first live load a few weeks ago through one of our contractors, and we're waiting on a revenue update. Todd checked this morning. They still don't have the numbers available yet, but once we do, I'll make sure that that's provided to all of you. So now going forward, these slides are just a proposed service option recap. I just want to go ahead and note that I don't plan on going over all of these, but with residential, because there was a significant change with regard to the recycling, this is how it is written in the current draft. So if you have anything that you would like to see changed, please let me know. So your residential curbside service, this is applicable to single-family residences and multifamily residences with carts. There's an exception for multifamily units that qualify for apartment rate dumpsters but have those unique property features where it really requires us to be able to give them a cart. There's one off of South Hill as an example that I used last time where they have an area for a dumpster pad, but unfortunately because of the power lines, we can't go in to be able to empty that dumpster. And so they're provided carts so that we can more readily provide that service and make sure that we're not damaging infrastructure. So ultimately though, those people do not have a yard. It does not make sense for them to have a residential curbside service with everything that entails. And so those people would receive the regular apartment service and they would just do so with those carts. That's evaluated with solid waste, and internally we're creating mechanisms to communicate what service and how that service is delivered through customer service and solid waste. So this would involve a single rate for a comprehensive service that would include commercial curbside pickup 1 time per week, yard waste 2 times per month, which is bi-weekly, landfill, 1 pickup truckload per month that could be dropped off. They do have to provide documentation that they are on the utility account. So anybody who just lives in the house would not be able to utilize this function for the entire household. It has to be the person who's on the account. And we are hoping that our new software that we plan on proposing to all of you with regard to scale, it's called a Scale It software for the landfill, will allow us to be able to more readily track that and create customer accounts, but it will also allow us to get away from taking cash at the landfill. So in addition to that, we have the transfer station, which is 1 pickup truckload per month. However, it is included in here that if they're just dropping off OCC, they have the ability of doing that unlimited.
Question.
Yes.
In my situation, my mom is 83. She's on the account. She cannot drive to take the truckloads. So how's that going to work?
So we can talk about that with customer service to see whether or not there's something that we could put onto the account, but ultimately that service gets abused very regularly. So you may actually have someone who hires a contractor, for example,
Correct.
to do work on their house, and then that contractor charges an 80-year-old customer to be able to haul away that trash or debris that's around the household. And then even though they've charged them, they're taking advantage of the service that the customer themselves paid for. So we've done our best to try to make it where we're limiting that abuse and being as reasonable as possible. But we can discuss internally what the options are with regard to Cogsdale and Scale It. But
As of right now, when I go and drop a truckload off, I take my driver's license and that piece of paper and show that I live at the address.
okay,
And that's what they do now.
okay.
So why can't we just make sure that is enforced in that?
Right now, it's very difficult for them to even be able to enforce in that way, because you have people who say, well, I just moved, so my driver's license isn't updated, that's why I'm hauling away all the stuff that I moved in for. I will say, I do think that it's a little bit more vague in the ordinance draft, but I will go back and check to be sure, where it says that we will require documentation. So ultimately, it may be an internal operational policy change on what documentation is required. But if it is more specific than that in here, then I can go back and take a look at that language, and when we discuss it with solid waste and customer service on what the options are for potentially adding people who are allowed to talk about the account. Because that's the other factor here, right? If you have someone where you're listed on the account, or you say that you live in the house, the person who is actually on the account, who is theoretically paying the bill, may not want, a grandson who lives with them to be able to take advantage of their one-time service. They may want them to be able to take advantage of that.
Because right now, we pay the service. Because we moved in to take over all the expenses for my mom, because she's 83 on fixed income. So we took over all bills when we came in, but it's still in her name because it's her house. So that's the reason I was questioning this, because that gets into a sticky situation that we know of. And I just want to make sure we're able to, if we have to have a documentation that states that this is what we can put on file, if it can be put into the system or something in that way.
Would a power of attorney be acceptable, or would you like that to be brought?
Because I have that too. I have power of attorney, medical, and payments and everything.
Okay, and that would help. The power of attorney example is actually very, very helpful, because then that removes the concern that someone who lives in the house is taking advantage of a service that the person who is on the account is paying for. So I think customer service has power of attorney information that they can put into the account, and we'll get with our potential vendor, Scale It, to determine whether or not it's possible when we know accounts for us to add information into that.
Okay.
And I have a question as well.
Yes.
What's going to happen to all of the recycling cartons?
So as it's presented today, and this is what we're going to get into as far as the implementation, but the plan currently is that once adopted, we would go and we would collect the recycling carts. That's how it's currently written. And then the customer, if they wanted to have an additional cart, that is actually on the rate schedule right now. That's how it's been utilized, really. They're using their 96-gallon cart, and then a lot of them are utilizing that recycling bin, which I think is 64 gallons, for their additional trash. But ultimately, they're receiving an additional service that we are not charging them for. So the plan would be to collect that, and then their additional add-on service up to the discretion of solid waste, but I can't see why that wouldn't be granted if we're already going out to clean up. they would be able to request that to be added on, a 64 gallon to be added on.
Okay, so we're going up on the price, looks like, and we're going down on service.
Correct, and that's what we discussed in December, that was staff's concern as well with regard to how we were
What
going
about
to handle
that? What's
recycling.
the, and is this per month?
Yes,
So in other words, it'd be cheaper to move outside the city and move into the county and have a private company come pick it up, because in Clayton County, they pick up $100 every 3 months. Now we're going to charge them close to $150 in 3 months.
I think when you compare where you want to live, ultimately, it needs to be about the quality of the services that are being provided, and the other services in the community that are being provided also have to be taken into account.
But we're taxing our people to death by doing this.
Well, and that was staff's concern in December as well with regard to
Nobody can
removing
figure
and limiting the
something
service. Yeah.
To answer Mr. Wright, so we originally went to recycling. We were having two days a week collection, or twice a week collection. So we went to recycling to reduce the waste stream going to the landfill. So the thought, and this is just my spitballing, was that we would, because some households do have two trash cans full of trash a week, was to allow residents that needed to keep 2 trash cans to just pick up that once a week at the same time. So if someone's got a family of 5, they may need 2 trash cans. Someone like me, a family of 2, may only need 1. That was just,
Okay.
my thought was, the answer was right, was that we used to give people twice a week pickup, and we went to recycling. And our argument was that 1 day a week with 2 cans versus to be able to handle.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what I'm getting at, because with me, there's 5 of us in the house. Even when I did the recycling, I still had 2 trash cans full of recycling. I've got boxes sitting out in the backyard because I get so many people order from Amazon. And now we're going to tell them that they can take it, but if they don't want to take it, and they want to put it in the trash can, then they end up being charged more now than what they were before.
Okay, so as it's written right now, the additional cart process is a extra service. We can arrange this so that what they are receiving under residential service is a 96 gallon cart and a 64 gallon cart, but ultimately that is, that our rate would be
So,
representative.
To define carts, so you got the larger green cart is how many gallons?
96.
And I don't have
And
that.
then
I still
there
got
was and then there were smaller blue carts, and there were also larger blue carts. So what's the smaller?
The smaller is 64.
64 gallons.
It may be 65. It's 65. I'm sorry.
I know my recycled trash can right now is bigger than my regular trash can.
The
That's
green
almost-
trash can is 96 and the recycling is 64.
Yeah, but my recycling is bigger than mine.
And the new recyclings that they dropped off, the
They're
both started
little-
blowing up, were bigger.
They're bigger.
They're still sick. Todd,
They're bigger.
how big is the blue recycling?
Blue recycling is 65. Unless you got an old car.
I've got an old car.
What we haven't done is we want to replace all the old.
Yeah, I've got a small
Right.
one that,
Even the old green cars are 96 gallon.
but it don't, I mean, like I said, I put more in the recycling than I can in the one I've got. And the one I've got is probably 20 years old. That's a power since my mom moved.
Just get your address, we can swap it out. What we haven't been doing is swapping out, but if they break, if we can't replace it, they'll replace it. But we haven't been going through the city as a whole, we call swapping out all trash cans.
Yeah, I put the wheel back on myself, so.
They should, even the old ones should be 96 gallon. Can I interject about the rates?
Yes. Come on, Todd.
I know the rates are.
So if you please come up to the
Yeah, come on up.
microphone.
So, yeah, I can understand this, so when people start hollering about the prices going up, we can at least explain it to them.
Okay, all right, back to the rates, I knew it was going to seem like a big increase, but upon my research, in 2006, residential rates were 1660, presently in 2026, they're 2687. So you go from, so that's a $10.27 increase. So back door in 2006 was 33.29. In 2026 is 33.29, $12.69 increase. Yard waste was $3 in 2006, 2026 is 1104. Apartment rate was 1460 in 2006, and it's 2363 in 2026. So you see, over 20 years, we haven't really, we're not increasing. So like what we're doing, we're providing a service, but we're not providing a service that's keeping up with the cost to provide the service. But I know if you're looking at your combined utility, you got your solid waste, you got your water, you got your electricity, everything combined. But if you look at it individually, solid waste, we haven't made any increases.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just saying all of
We
a
just want to
sudden,
make
we're
that point
going
that
down.
our rates have been going up very, very little over the last 20 years.
Correct, and I understand that. I'm just saying that we're going up and going down.
Yeah.
We're not whole price down.
And that was staff's concern when we met in December, was to emphasize that it is, ultimately you guys will be the ones who will bear the burden of a large portion of those calls, because we're narrowing the service that we are providing and we're increasing the amount that we are requesting as far as the rate. And it is a valid concern, and we can make adjustments to figure out how you guys want to provide the service, what you want it to look like. Ultimately, in the future, I think that the main goal of solid waste is to do a comprehensive rate study that's going to include, incorporation of our operations at the landfill, the transfer station, as well as all of these individual services. But as of right now, I think that we delayed so long that we're already kind of behind. And it's very difficult for solid waste to be able to say that, the way that we are changing service isn't going to make a big change, because some of these service changes with regard to how people are charged, what's comprehensive versus, your apartment, your downtown commercial rates. That consistency may lead us to realize and recognize that we may still be undercharging for the service that we are providing. And I have a couple more examples of that throughout that aren't necessarily related to residential, but it is a moving target, and we haven't moved in quite some time. So I think that is the reason why it was provided, but if we can get a consensus from the board on what you would like the residential to look like, whether or not that is they receive a 90-60 gallon and a 64 gallon cart, and any carts in addition to that, they would have to pay additional carts. Right now, commercial service, that's how it's treated, where if you have commercial curbside, you're charged for the cart, and if you request an additional cart, you pay that additional service for that additional cart. Because the logic is that you would be paying that if you increase your dumpster size as well. Yes.
Okay. I got very much like you. You're saying that we have the 96 and the 64. The plan is to remove the 64, and we just have the 96.
Correct.
Is that the biggest cart we can get? The 96?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if I have a 96 gallon cart, and I got a lot of trash, and I want another cart, okay, what are you saying the possible price might be for me to add a cart and have two cars?
Do you have that breakdown?
Currently, if you want an additional 96 gallons, you pay $60, the cost of the car. You pay additional $60. And what we've been doing is it's paying for the car, but then now we dump two cars, but you're paying the price. What we want to do now, you pay the $60 for the car, and then we will come on and add an additional price, because we now you instead of getting dumping one car, we're dumping two cars.
We got extra cards right there.
We add a card one time.
Okay, you're
And
saying,
here, that would be slightly changed because it's a comprehensive service. So ultimately, if you're paying for an additional cart, now that it's comprehensive service instead of piecemeal, that would be potentially lower at that point, because you're not paying for yard waste, your additional landfill dumps, and your transfer station dumps.
okay, I'm paying for two cars, but my service pickup will be the same.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Because you're picking up more trash.
Collection day is there.
Guys, if y'all are gonna speak, I need y'all to come up here. Customer service, Todd, come up here, please. Serena, Rita, whoever's gonna do it, and Todd. And let's go over what is happening now. So right now, if you have an extra cart, right now you have a 96 and a 64, and that is your 2687.
That's our total price is
For residential
Thank you.
collection,
67.
2687.
How much?
I get two. They're both getting picked up as trash right now.
Okay, wait a
Let's
minute.
forget the what they are. But if I have another cart right now, Serena, what am I getting charged?
If you add another green card, you get the $60 fee for the card, the one-time charge. And then you're gonna get $26.87 times 2.
Right, so you're
On your
gonna
bill.
pay, you're already paying another additional $26.87 for that third cart for the 2 greens, a blue, and then you also pay the $60 to buy the cart at the beginning of the service.
Yeah, on the flyer that we got, it says current rate is $37.91. And you're telling us it's $26.97 and it's.
That's because that rate is, in the second page of that rate schedule notes that includes yard waste.
That's
So
everything, that's the comprehensive
Yes,
residential.
right.
So the
Versus- If you go back to just residential home pickup, just solid waste, it's $26.87.
Yes.
Our suggestion from the beginning was to combine everything to say this, if you're a residential customer, this is what you receive.
And the slide on, I believe it's slide number 16, should be on page 8 of the presentation slides before you guys. That notes the actual just trash pickup rates without we had to combine them with regard to the rate schedule to do the comparison, to present an apples to apples comprehensive current rate versus future current rate. So that residential backdoor pickup, apartment rate, and yard waste are all included on that slide. And to show a comparison of Athens, Clark County, which we utilized when we made our presentation in December, they actually have a breakdown for each cart. They note the average number of trash bags that should fit in there, the average number of people in that household, the monthly service for ADA, and then the monthly service for your backyard service. A 64-gallon trash can there, the additional cost is $33.83. And if you're talking about backdoor, they charge $66.80.
But that's not comparable to what people are getting now. What people are getting now in the city of Griffin is actually a 64 and a 96-gallon service, which is $78.65.
Correct, and that's what I'm saying, the additional cost would be $33.83 on top of their 96 that they're currently getting. So their comparison, they did combine them.
Yeah.
Yes, the 64 and the 96.
$78.65 is what they currently charge for what we are paying $26.87.
Correct, but that's still, I'm not worried about what somebody else is, I'm worried about our citizens. Is
I,
this gonna come up and people are gonna start burning trash in their backyards and try to keep from paying this extra because of the cost?
Well, ultimately,
So
it would
many
be,
people don't have trucks that can haul the stuff there and take it. And then we're going to charge them so much more. I mean, why not them digging a burn pit in the backyard and you claiming that it's a warming fire and burning it in there without burning plastic?
the only way to opt out of residential solid waste would be for you to go on complete maintenance disconnect and have no utilities in the
Right, I'm
house.
not saying that.
So
I'm just
they
saying-
would have, they're even if they didn't use it, they're gonna be charged for it.
But
That's
if
how
they're
the
not
ordinance
used
is
to,
written.
with these people who are used to having 2 carts and paying this one low fee, now you're going to 1, what are they gonna do with the extra stuff? When you said the lid's gotta be closed tightly, can't have any extra bags on the side and all that, and then what are they gonna do? Are they gonna start just taking the trash, throwing it on the street? Are they gonna take it and just let it pile up in their backyards? What are we going to do in that situation? Because personally, I would burn it. I mean, law's, but still, if you don't get caught, you don't get caught. This is what's gonna happen with these people. They're gonna say, okay, we're gonna go against you.
Historically, it took 2 cans per week to pick up trash. We went to recycling. But our argument was 1 can was for recyclables, 1 can was for regular household garbage for the price of 20. Whatever it was. And we've had municipal cost index increase over the years as well. So it's not like we're paying the same that we paid 10 years ago.
And that's fine, we just need to
So I'm just
know
trying to-
consensus wise, are we wanting to note the residential service is essentially like, kind of looking at the chart that I noted with Athens, that it's a 64-gallon and a 96-gallon service? And then that's what our rate represents, that's really what we need to know. Yes, Ms. Warren.
Again, we have a 96-gallon container. And their intent is to get rid of the 64-gallon container. So that would, now are we paying a separate price for each one of the containers? Or are we just paying one price?
You would pay an additional price if you wanted to get another container.
No, right now you're paying one
But
price.
Right now, we're paying one price. Okay, so if we do away with the second container, we're still paying the same price, we just have one container.
We're actually saying we're going to increase the price.
We're
I
going to
understand
increase the
that.
price, but yes.
Okay, if I wanted a second container, period, what's the possible increase for just my garbage service, not the yard waste, not all of that, for me to have 2 containers?
2 96-gallon containers.
Mm-hmm.
The additional 96-gallon container, you have that increased by 5, so 3187. So it would be 3187.
3187.
That's what's currently listed. We can look at the rates to make sure that we're not accounting for the comprehensive.
But will I be charged an extra price for it to be picked up? Or I just have to have the container?
No, that's the service per month. That's not the.
The service. I'm saying, but my service per month will not go up because I have 2 containers.
Yes, it would. That's $31.87 every
Okay,
month.
so double, it would be double.
But Lauren, she can do, but it's only 1 trip. So why are we charging the same price as 2 trips?
Because the
Our
disposal,
disposal rate is now increased. We're
Okay.
throwing out more trash.
so every time that is over, and I can show you with regard to actually roll-offs is a really good example.
I hear what you're saying, but if I'm my brain, I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, that's what.
I'm not arguing with you about it. I'm just trying to understand. I pay for the extra container, and then I pay. It's just like I'm paying 2 yard waste. Okay, so right now it's $30-something, and if I wanted the monthly charge, and it's gonna be picked up every week, then I pay to pick up both containers, $60-something for both containers a month. Okay.
It basically be the current rate times 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, I will say, to put this into perspective, just to do my due diligence on this, so the roll-off rentals, this actually provides a good example from a commercial perspective. So right now, a 20-yard roll-off is $350 flat. We charge that flat rate. Doesn't matter how much garbage you're putting in it, we're charging that flat rate. If you have 2 carts, it doesn't matter how much garbage you're putting in it, you're paying for the 96 gallons. It's really the concept or the idea to compare. That gives you a minimum amount of 6 tons at $58.01. That's your landfill minimum tonnage fee, which is $348. Last week, we had a roll-off that weighed 11.2 tons, and the charge for disposal was $649.82. We only collected $350, which means the city is absorbing that extra $299.82. So take that into account with regard to residential, and you are essentially absorbing those costs, which is fine if that is what you're wanting to do instead of, putting that towards the customer. We just need to know what you want that to look like. So do you want it to be where your residential service is a 96-gallon and a 64-gallon cart every month, and that is what the rate that we have proposed offers you?
So, in a nutshell, if I want an extra container, and I don't want to go to take it to myself, and I want to make sure that I have enough room, then I'm gonna be paying probably another extra $30-something per month. So basically, what we have to decide and direct our residents is, this is what it is, and to keep you from having all the other stuff of taking your stuff, extra stuff to the landfill. It's gonna cost you $31 a month. Is it worth it for you to do that, or to go through all the rest of the change?
Right. So, and I guess the question becomes for you all, sort of to Commissioner Wright's point. Right now, we're picking up 2 carts, and it's going in the garbage truck right here today. They're doing it right now as we speak. So we're able to do that. Do we want to continue with the 96 and 64 carts at the proposed rate, and that's up to y'all as well, of $47.91, which would include yard waste, it would include your trip to the landfill, it would include your trip to the transfer station. That's the comprehensive residential rate. Or what staff had said from December was remove the 64, and so you have a 96-yard cart, or 96 gallon cart, the yard waste, and then the landfill and transfer station. If what I'm understanding Mayor saying is we've always had to have 2 carts to be able to account for the trash, then I think we're gonna have to have 2 carts. I don't think that has changed. What we're doing is changing the recycling program, which is gonna mean that we're increasing trash. So at this point, I think what's probably the better solution is to say, keep the 96 and 64, understand that your blue cart is trash, and we'll get, Danielle's already ready to go with whatever it is that we decide today. And say you're keeping both of those. We're gonna have to increase the rate. Kelsey's example of the roll-off is that we're losing money every time we throw it in the landfill. and say, yes, we're sorry, we are gonna have to increase the rate. This is comprehensive now to a residential customer. We now receive the 96 and 64 gallon trash service, garbage collection. You're not required to recycle. If you'd like to require, you can take that to the transfer station. It has to be corrugated cardboard for free. You also have a free transfer station drop off, a free landfill drop off, and you have guard waste bi-weekly. All of that is included in your residential rate of $47.91.
So,
Given that, in terms of the budget, in terms of residential, not talking about land, yard waste, residential household garbage, if we do this increase, will we break even or make a little bit of profit? And so that's where we have financially, are we making a windfall in terms of revenue stream?
No, there will not be a windfall.
So-
Residential.
So right now, we're losing money
Yes,
based on the current process.
yes. The only way that you make money in the solid waste enterprise fund overall is from the landfill and transfer station.
Okay, but I'm taking each one business by business. So the residential solid waste.
I'll go
So
grab
we need to know
it.
how much money we need for that. Same situation with yard waste, where we own it as a business enterprise.
I can pull that up from here.
And the
Sorry,
services
Ms.
are
Ward.
changing.
Go ahead, Ms. Ward.
The services are changing a little bit, so that comparison is very difficult. I do anticipate that it won't be long before we'll be able to
okay, so will we or will we not be able to put cardboard in our residential container?
You can if you would like. How it is currently written, you can. Our ordinance only encourages people to recycle, and if they would like to recycle corrugated cardboard,
But if we
can
choose not to recycle and take it, we can't.
yes, correct. You can put
Will
it
we
in
be,
your list.
people be instructed as to how they have to put it in? You know, you have to
Well,
break it down.
if it goes in, it would go to the landfill.
There will not be
Yeah.
recycled
I
residential.
understand it won't be in the recycling, I'm talking about using cardboard as garbage.
Yeah, if they will be educated, we'll do some education on how to dispose of it at the transfer station.
So
What
that
will
takes
look
away people thinking that they gotta take cardboard somewhere,
Right.
else it can be, you can be garbage, okay, all right.
Correct.
The commercial, they do, commercial.
Commercial is required.
Commercials would still be required, yes.
And just keep in mind also, we don't charge for the blue card. It's at our cost. So you get 2 cards, but you're only paying for the one. So you get 2 cards, but you don't pay for the blue.
You pay for them, but it'll be a small increase for it.
Yeah, those cards are about $55 a piece, but we provide them, so you don't pay for them.
So they pay for the green trash?
Yeah,
card?
and the recycling card, since we were mandating recycling, we're not charging for the 64 gallon.
So do you want to charge for the 64? Going forward, we're probably not gonna order any more blue, we're just gonna make them all green. We're gonna keep 96 and 64. So do we want to charge now for both of them since they're both trash and we're not requiring you to
So
recycle?
what's the cost per card? $60.
60 is for 65 gallon and 65 gallon, 64 gallon run you about $55 a cart.
That's just for the cart, not the garbage.
Yeah, that's
One
it for the cart.
fee.
That's
And that's also what we charge if it was if it's damaged in a way that is not maintenance, basically, if it's not where it needs to be replaced, if someone, does something that breaks their part, like puts people
So
in
this
their
is for new residents that are moving into a property.
At one time.
So there's not a significant benefit to having a smaller cart? Is that correct? Like why wouldn't people just have 296 carts?
Because for every amount of garbage that they can put in there to increase that amount, that is more cost. So you're eating more cost at that point. So if you have 296s, the difference between 64 and 96 is as more that's being eaten by the city.
The disposal
But
cost.
right now, the current service that they receive is 96 and 64, and so the justification is right now, you're essentially eating that cost. The question is whether or not you want to continue.
So in
eating that cost.
actuality, even though we're using the 64 gallon cart for disposal, and it was originally landfill, that was not intent to go into the landfill. So we
It wasn't
basically taking that
Yes,
for nothing.
yes, correct. And that's what we will, that if we proceed this way with the 96 and 64, we will continue to do that. You guys will continue to bear the cost for the customers of that 64, that additional. But then the next question is whether or not we are charging for the cart itself, a one-time fee for the cart itself for the 64 gallon.
And essentially, the last few years, when we were talking about the landfill space running out, that's because we've been taking taking stuff that we're not even getting compensated for?
No, that's,
No,
that's a different landfill.
That's different.
Okay, all right.
It goes to the transfer station.
Because we're gonna be here to one.
Yeah, basically, in essence,
Let me ask this question, man. What is the increase of the disposal? How much has it increased?
I'll have to look at it.
If that's the reason that we're having to.
Basically, the more tonnage, the more
That's
disposal.
what I'm trying to
Yeah,
get
so
to. If that's what the reason we're having to change, and we receive these complaints. One thing I don't do is legislate, govern by what I read on social media. But there have been some valid concerns where people say, if you're not recycling, you're putting all of it in the same container, so you're not recycling. So we pretty much answered that we're no longer recycling. What I need to be able to explain, or have you to explain to me, what is the difference in the disposal fee that's causing us to lose even more money? So if people understand that the disposal fee is going up, that's why your collection fee is going up. That's why you're having to pay more, because the city is having to pay whatever, you give me that number.
The tonnage fee.
The tonnage fee, whatever, if the tonnage fee has increased from 2006 to now, then of course your garbage rate, your residential rate is going to increase along with it, along with every other rate. And I think if we explain it backwards to where we are now, then people understand, at least I understand it better. And I like the idea of keeping both, just the green and the blue, and people understand that the blue is not a recycling, the blue is just for extra garbage. And you paying for both. I don't want to reduce any of the service, but if we are going to charge more, explain why we're not just out of the blue pulling something out of our hat saying, hey, we came up with these numbers, we just want to start charging people more for residential, whatever it is, but have an explanation as to why we're doing it. And if the explanation is the disposal fee has gone up.
Labor costs.
Yeah, I think it's disposal, labor, and your equipment as well. So your cost of service has gone up, and that's why we really do want to recommend a comprehensive cost of service study, so we can make sure that we're actually getting the target.
Give me something that has gone up 50%, has gone up 30%, has gone up 100%, whatever it is, and I can adjust that to.
Well, if you think about it this way, your 64-gallon cart was not trash. So if you have 64-gallon carts out there and there's 10,000 customers, that's 640,000 gallons of trash that used to be not going to the landfill.
There you go.
So we're paying 640,000 gallons, which very quick math, that's 200 and something thousand tons, 2,666 tons, which is about $150,000. Again, very quick math. Don't quote me on that.
So the tonnage fee is $58.
That's our minimum, but other landfills, I don't know if I put it in here.
55.
Yeah, I was saying.
Other landfills are higher. So our
$22.
disposal at other locations for that, the landfill disposal of household garbage is higher.
On average, is a household tonnage is.
Hold on one second. Go back to what you were saying. Finish your thought.
Well, you know, there's a 96-gallon cart and there's a 64-gallon cart.
Okay.
It used to be that the 96-gallon cart went to the landfill and the 64-gallon cart went to the transfer station for recycling. It didn't go to the landfill, so we weren't paying disposal costs for that. We weren't paying for that.
Okay.
But for the last 2 years, the city's paid for it, our customers have not. We haven't done anything to increase those costs because we're now taking those 64 gallons times 10,000 to the landfill. So that's 640,000. Oh, and that's $150,000 every time a week when we collect it.
So
That's every service.
So to justify, to answer your question, to make this make sense, the point that we're not recycling anymore is the reason this cost, because now more is going to the landfill. And with more going to the landfill, it costs more.
Yes.
Okay. So my little feeble man says the education starts with nothing is going to be recycled. Everything is going to the landfill. Whether you put it in a green can or a blue can, the 96 or the 64, which whatever you do, when you pull it to we're gonna charge you the same thing for this. We're not gonna charge the same thing. We're gonna charge one rate for the same 2 cans, but the rate is increasing because where that recycling used to go, we can't absorb that cost of this additional garbage that's not going to recycling, that is actually going to the landfill. It is increasing it by, say it again, Ms. O'Connor.
I really don't want to, but that's.
But yeah, but that's essentially that's what's happening. We're taking more to the landfill.
Right.
That disposal cost has gone up. So we don't nothing that we can control, but it's got to be paid for. And the city can't keep absorbing it, which we have for the last 2 years, we said.
Well, in that regard, but we also have not increased costs for our service to
Right.
be able to account for the costs that have increased for us to take garbage to the landfill, for any of the garbage we can take.
Or the higher price of trucks and the
Or
higher
trucks,
price of labor and fuel and everything. So it's a big picture.
Do we still use butts and Lamar? Where does that fit into the picture?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
We use Lamar more than we use bus.
But yes.
Well, and y'all can chop it up from here. I would like to see us use both the green and the blue. The same service that we're getting right now. And I would like to see the increase. If it's increased, you gotta increase it.
And then the cost of containers.
The cost of the containers, why would you?
Right now, we're charging for one,
For new people?
for new
For new accounts? Hey, that's, y'all have to figure that part out.
But the
I
transfer,
can only go to
so if
where I
someone
am.
transfers to a new residence, do they have to pay new fees for transfers?
If they already have service in the city and transfer, is that what you asked?
Yes.
No. Customer service said no.
That's customer service.
They said no.
The customer service agent.
What is staff's recommendation on 2 cans for new customers?
I think if we're gonna provide 2 cans, they need to pay for the cost of the can, they don't pay for the service.
Yeah, so much, yeah.
But just the
So much, yeah.
the cost up
They pay
front.
$120,
Mhm.
is that a,
Yeah, they pay 60 now, and it's 55, so 60 and 55, so 115.
Do you pay that one time or do you integrate that into the bill?
One time.
One time.
One time.
and then in apartment dwellers, they don't pay that fee?
It depends. It depends on whether they have cards.
Okay,
Yes.
fine, just checking. And then, so one-time fee of 120, 125, what is it?
115, I think is what it was.
That's what I-
Is there a way to finance that $25 a month, or is that, I mean, what, I'm just throwing that out there.
Why would you do that?
I'm just asking,
It's in the hard to do that and deposit and.
you're paying a deposit and everything else. I just threw that
Okay,
out there.
so that's not going to be like a whole lot of folks.
No.
Because you're saying if a person moves in the city, it's our responsibility to get I'm sure they don't have to put their trash can in the moving stove. It will be our responsibility to get them.
Oh, they already have trash cans.
Yeah, that's.
But when somebody moves, do we pick trash cans up? We just leave trash cans there?
As of right now, it depends, but usually they can be left there unless they're called to come pick them up, unfortunately, but
If
that's part
somebody
of our.
moves and there's not a
Yeah,
trash
some
can there.
are being
then we-
picked up, but some are not being picked up. The ones that are being picked up there, everything's off. The customer service sends us a list, and then we go retrieve those cans. But if they're not on.
But if somebody moves and within the city, and there's not a trash can there, we're not charging them for a trash can, to get them one there. Okay.
No.
And we're fixing that, the rest of the pickup, or are we not picking up through the internal operations and communication that'll happen between customer service and solid waste.
Okay.
So
with this proposal, we've established less services,
That's a proposal.
it's less services, higher cost. Are we doing this just to make up for the cost that we're losing, or will there be a higher quality of service with these changes?
Or there's not less service now, we all said 96 and 64, so the service is gonna be the same as
But
far
there's
as
no
the collection.
recycling,
I'm sorry.
there's no recycling.
There's not, but there's 64 gallons of household garbage disposal instead of 64 gallon option of recycling disposal.
So it is a reduction in service.
It depends on how you look at it, a lot of people hated recycling, so that depends on.
Well, no, it depends on that we have not been recycling
Right, for 2 years.
for 2 years, so no, there's not a change.
No, there's really not a change in operations.
We're just covering the cost of the increased sort of operation.
So will this provide a higher quality of service for what we provide, or is this just to make up for the money we're losing?
The change in the cost has nothing to do with the quality of service. All of the other things that we are doing as far as the Samsara driver app and the additional routing stuff, the scale it software, the other expenses that come with that will certainly help the quality of service. Right now, we have commercial drivers or residential drivers that know where to go because they've done it forever. To ask somebody to come in and say, hey, pick up Ms. Willis's route because she's no longer with us, and we don't actually have routing software for a $10 million operation, that's my fault. That's prior administration's fault. And so it's taken us this long, though, to figure out, we have notebook paper that says, go pick up the liquor store in the Flats, or Flats Liquor Store. Doesn't even say liquor store in the Flats. If you're not from Griffin or don't know where the Flats is, you don't have, Flats Liquor Store does not exist. Subway, what Subway? So it has been a complete overhaul to try and make sure that they operate as an enterprise fund should operate. So to answer your question, changing a rate will not do quality of service, but all of the other things that we have had to do or are doing that need to be accounted for as far as expenses will certainly increase the quality of service.
Like we're increasing,
That's good.
we've done additional software. So Samsara has been put on all of them. We've retained Samsara to do the routing software. We've created some internal systems through communications with IT and GIS to be able to fix those things. All those things are costly. And those are ways that we are willing to invest in the service to make sure that we're increasing the quality. And as I mentioned in December, we're bringing solid waste into the 21st century. And I think that Todd really liked that use of that phrase because that really does feel like what's happening with regard to the workers as well. So I do think that comprehensively, that's why we called it solid waste solutions, because it's not as simple as a rate and it's not as simple as an ordinance. It is a comprehensive change on how we think about solid waste internally and how our customers think about solid waste externally. I do believe that customer service may have some comments with regard to the container charges, just to make sure that we're being clear. So I'm going to hand it over.
So when they sign up for service, if they have been a customer and have already had our garbage service, we don't charge another container fee. If they are a new customer that's never lived in Griffin, even though there's a container already at the location, they'll still get charged that $60 or whatever fee we end up charging. But it's only a one-time only fee for the customer.
I like the fact that we still have two containers. And even though it price will increase, but at least you still have two containers. The only problem I had with it was like commission, right? I was thinking, maybe one container pay more money, and the resident probably would have a problem with that. But I like the fact that it's still two containers.
What's the
increase?
What's the average tonnage on a household? The reason I'm asking that is we're charging, let's say $60 for a commercial ton. So if a residence, does a resident generate how many tons a year do you estimate that we as a household generate? Is there a way to figure that out? Just average. And the reason I'm saying that is because if we're charging $58 a ton, but yet we're charging our customers or our citizens on average $70 a ton, can we justify explaining that? As I said, explain that to them, that the difference is because we think it's the man hours and things, so we can be able to explain that to them.
58 is hours. The other landfills actually have higher rates than what we have, I will say that. But I think that if we came up with an estimate, looking just at like what Athens has, they give people like an average number of trash bags. A 96 and a 64, they're estimating 12 trash bags basically are the service that you're receiving there. We could potentially look that up, and I think it's very dependent, and ultimately because there are so many factors with regard to what a service charges. That's why having a comprehensive rate study is very helpful, because we don't think about the fact that it's your trucks, it's your maintenance, it's your containers, it's your gas.
I want to be able to explain it because we noticed that the county's doing this right now for their crap that they've got going on. So we need to make sure we do the study so we can prove to our citizens that we are being fiscally responsible with their money.
I think it's really difficult.
2 bags a week. Before that was 1 bag and then recyclable, so.
And it's very difficult as well because residential, that's not where we're making money, where we are always going to be in a deficit.
Right.
So it's a matter of degree, it's a matter of how much. And what solid waste is sort of load bearing, how we're currently doing it, it puts them in a position of losing so much money on the residential side that they can't do the service commercially or at the landfill or at the transfer station.
That's where Providence comes in. We pay so little to be able to pick it up as customers. That's the reason I said, do we need to go up on commercial tonnage dumping in our landfill compared to the others? And that's what you want to do about this comprehensive study, right?
I think we have gone up.
Yeah, we just went up on the commercial last couple of years. We went up, normally the increase is normally 2 to 3%. We increased ours I went up $15, which was still below the rate.
So we're still below others.
We're still below others, yes.
Companies.
We're still below the private.
So what is Buck County and Lamar County charging us to dump our?
I'll have to look that up, but now, Lamar County is now ran by Amway, which is privately owned, and the rates go up yearly. Like every January, we get a rate increase. It's negotiated, but so you have to look at too that every year the cost of disposal is going to go up because they charge. They charge them.
I feel the same. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around about where we can make up the difference and being able to still be cheaper than the others, but yet, like you said, we did this last year up to, so we still went under. I remember doing that, and I agree with that, but we've got to balance this with our citizens.
Yes. And
we already know that anytime you go up on anything for citizens, they want to complain. So, yeah, the other thing is when we do this, will you send out a flyer with the bill explaining all this? Instead of just putting it out
We'll
there.
get with Danielle to ask her the best way. A lot of times flyers get thrown right in the trash, so I'm not sure how a door hanger or trash can hanger, we'll have to get with her to figure out the best way.
On slide 18, the comprehensive residential rate says currently is $37.91. Does that include the yard waste?
Yes,
Okay,
that's how that
So we're
goes.
going, so $37.91 is the current household for for regular trash and curb and yard waste. And so the proposals go to $47.91 for both residential service and yard waste.
So it includes a 96-gallon trash can, 64-gallon trash can, yard waste bi-weekly, and 1 transfer station free dumping load, which is your household
So we're looking at a
garbage, and
total $10 a month increase.
Let me ask this question. For the ones that are not in compliance, I see several per week that are for the same addresses. They may have 1 or 2 extra black bags. Have we gone up on those fees? What are those fees? How do they get flagged? What do we charge? Is that? number in these numbers, or are you all still working on that?
What does that mean, extra black bags? Is that extra garbage besides what's in the
Yes,
trash?
where it doesn't fit in the can. We talked about this a little bit last time. Athens actually charges $2 per additional bag, and you're required to get stickers. But there's a lot of different ways that you can handle it, including not picking it up and considering it to be inaccessible. It's very punitive, but
Well, a lot of times it's just been picked up as we haven't been charged.
Okay. I see a lot of that, even.
I do too.
And we would still have the option to get a third container for additional money, for additional charge.
yes.
Any other questions? Are we comfortable with getting
Yeah,
at $47.91 cost, which is a $10 increase for residential garbage / yard waste?
I would just add to what Mr. Todd just said. If somebody's got a bag outside of their trash can, please just let us pick it up. And that's the level of service that I think that myself, Commissioner Fuller, and the entire board wants to see. We want a clean city. We want it to run efficiently, but there are costs associated with that. And because of that cost, we're not going to leave your garbage laying on the side of it, because it doesn't just affect that house, it's going to affect the entire community. So if we can be, whatever it takes to keep our city, try to keep our city clean.
And the software will enable the driver to put if there's an extra bag.
Yeah.
Developing a pattern that they need.
Yeah, it actually, I mean, it will be service confirmation, that's the main intention, but it will be able to note those things.
Well, what we've been doing is, they've been picking them up, but if it's weekly, you got 2 extra bags, then
Right,
you need to get another trash can.
Yeah,
Now you
can
take
flag
advantage of it,
it.
but periodically, you know,
But
This week,
usually
you get
we
another
wouldn't worry about that, right?
Christmas
Say somebody,
time, people have extra
if
bags.
it's weekly, you need to get another trash can.
Christmas.
And holidays,
Holidays,
days,
Christmas,
holidays.
we pick everything up.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
that's
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
Ken.
you.
First, thank you.
And do we have a presentation on yard waste at this time?
So we have
In terms
some,
of about possibly doing RFP /
We have some information for you, but hope you jump way ahead. All of these other proposed rates, I didn't hear anything about that. I only heard comprehensive items for you. So backdoor pickup add-on, special handling, apartment service, commercial curbside, your downtown tiers. We need to know yes or no on all of that to be able to proceed.
Yes, if it's the same, corresponding to exactly what they
It
would.
is not, that's why, so if there's not a percentage increase, it's all different depending on what the service is.
Let's go, take them one at a time, let's go.
Yeah, so
Let's get it out
backdoor
of the way.
pickup is $4 more, which percentage wise is probably about the same as the residential rate increase. Special handling is going up $10, so that's the same as residential. The apartment service is also up $10. Commercial curbside is also up $10, so those are about the same. If you-
You have my consensus.
Okay.
yeah.
All right, the downtown is different. The tier 1, and I'll have to defer to them to remind me what tier is what. Tier 1 went up 10, tier 2 went up 15, and tier 3 went up 20.
If that's the staff's recommendation, you have my
Tier 1 office.
What's the difference?
tier 1 is businesses that don't serve or manufacture food or alcohol, excluding places of assembly, which is your office spaces, things of that nature. Tier 2 is places of assembly, restaurants, bars, or any business licensed to sell alcohol or handle food that on average manufacture, serve, or are open for 1 meal or shift per day. That accounts for your businesses downtown that are bars that are open only 5 p.m. to midnight, for example. And tier 3 is restaurants, bars, or any business licensed to sell alcohol or handle food that on the days when they operate, serve, or are open for more than 1 meal or shift per day. And keep in mind, all downtown service is picked up 6 days a week.
If that is the staff's recommendation, you have my consensus.
That's understandable.
And the commercial dumpsters is the last one. And I think, did all of those go up 10?
If that is staff recommendation, you have my consensus.
I think, surely that's a typo on the gift card 5 times, did not go down $100?
Yes, that is correct. That is the typo.
And we're
Trying to
starting to
paste in
weigh,
PowerPoint.
and we're gonna start weighing, roll-off containers so that we don't get.
Yes, there will be what the charge is.
There will be a sage charge based on the yardage, and then tonnage, is that correct?
That's correct. So, and that is what I was noting to show you kind of the comparison of how we were handling it previously. So it would be a flat rate and then charging for tonnage that's over 6 tons, which is actually what happens with private. And I know I've had to get one recently. So
That's what I'm gonna have to do at my dad's house. I'm gonna have to bring a 15 or 20 and dump everything. Any different mattresses at $40 a piece.
Okay, so, the other thing, Kelsey, I think they need to make sure they understand, we will bring this back to y'all, I think if everybody's on board. With an ordinance change for March, so.
Is it worth having
ordinance,
a town hall meeting?
I don't think that that's gonna be beneficial.
Okay.
Let us get with Danielle and we'll give y'all some ideas as to how we're going to present it to the public, but I think that's gonna not be helpful. But we'll have it on the agenda for March, so you are gonna have to have 2 readings. It'll be effective at the time of adoption. There's some concerns about how we.
yes. So I have that timeline on slide 20. It's your second to last one. So we're recommending adoption in March. You have your 2 readings. We have in here immediate cessation of recycling, but now that we're not picking up carts, that actually makes things much simpler. And then full implementation no later than September 30th. Part of the delay for full implementation, and we can do it on a rolling basis, is that we have communicated with Cogsdale about removing yard waste as a line item, in addition potentially to some other things that we need to add in onto the bills. They have estimated 3 months once that quote is prepared and approved, but that was just with regard to the yard waste line item. So I would say we'd estimate 6 months potentially, so we're trying to provide us with that amount of time for full implementation by September 30th.
Why not keep a line item so that we can see the business model in regards to yard waste in terms of the revenue coming in, look at residential trash service in terms of the revenue stream, expenses?
Your rate would have to differ, so how we propose it is with a comprehensive rate for everything to be collective and together. It also makes it more difficult to pull things off or put things on. So yard waste being a separate item would potentially, and has, put us in the position of certain apartments being charged, the yard waste line item, but and making it where they are residential. This is a comprehensive residential curbside rate, separates them from apartments, it separates them from your downtown and your apartments that have carts. So the idea is where it's easier for us to be able to monitor and track, it's easier for us to be able to implement and put in. I, however, would love to see, and I would have to get with IT to see if this is even possible, because I know we've had discussion in the past, to actually have a better presentation of our utility bill. And I think that you'll see when we go over our goals that the branding for Griffin Utilities as a combined utility is something that we're going to be discussing over the next year. And I think that we'll need to include a bill update, but until we figure out what that actual branding is going to be and how that presentation needs to be made, we're going to be limited in the things that we're going to be able to change. So I've been told in the past Cogsdale wouldn't be able to do the subcategories underneath like a service to explain everything that's included, but we can have those internal conversations. It just wouldn't happen this year.
So we will not, so residential, household garbage, and curbs, yard waste are going to be blended now so that we will not be able to see the detail in terms of what's making money or possibly losing.
Budget-wise, it'll not be blended. Charge-wise,
Charge-
show on the
Charge-wise,
bill.
but will we still have revenue streams showing the yard waste in the budget, or is it going to be? So that's my question. Are we as a board going to be able to see the revenue stream coming in for yard waste and the expenses? And are we going to be able to see the residential revenue?
I guess.
I mean, I think we still will because of how we've come up with the rate. So we've, your residential rate, if we had an increase in your yard waste, we would come back to you guys and say, hey, our contractors increased yard waste. We want to increase the residential comprehensive rate. And you would say yes or no.
Personally, I'd rather see yard waste fee and the residential trash fee so that each person sees it individually. Just like, I think we should hold
I think that was part of how we got here.
Each division rate and build that into it. So.
I understand the logic, but I think that's part of how we got here, which is why we recommended having this as being comprehensive.
Ms. Carter, if that's staff recommendation, I'm one, and
I will say,
That's sort of why it's taken us a year to be able to bring this back to you, because it doesn't, when you look at it now, it does not make any sense as to who's getting charged what.
Right.
And you know what, most of the time with residents, when they look at their, even like their electric bill, they look at everything. They say, my utility bill, like say my electric bill, $200. I'm like, my light bill's $600. But they're not looking at everything, and I'm sure that we will be able to, if necessary, or if a customer want to come in and see what they're being charged for each thing. But I don't have a problem with the way y'all do it.
and to know if we had any change in how it would be visible to you guys from a potential revenue perspective, I think that would happen once we make the decision on what to do with regard to RFP versus bringing yard waste in-house. So to recap, that was a discussion that was had last time where you guys wanted us to look into that. These are genuinely just preliminary numbers that Todd came up with. I don't think that we can do a full comparison for you because the contract that the current contract is based on needs to be updated. So we need to do an RFP anyway, and the cost of that service may change. Again, that's when we come back to you when we say, do you guys want to increase this rate, or do you want to continue to bear any increase that might be associated with it, or would you like to bring it in-house? So that, just keep that in mind as we look at these numbers.
Thank you for being very comprehensive.
Okay, currently for yard waste, current contract is $672,000, and that includes disposable fee. So we came in-house to hire a Class A equipment operator would be with salary and benefits would be $67,213.25. So we went with 3 operators. That would be $2,001, $639.79. A grappler truck, I rounded it up to $230,000. So we would add 3 operators and 3 grappler trucks. That would be $1,639.75 plus $690,000, which would be $891,639.75. Basically, difference would be $219,639.75. If we went in-house and we had three trucks operating. So we went, so that's a difference of $2,019 of what we pay now.
$219,000. And that is more, yes. And that, on top of that, increased potential liability. Because if we currently have an issue where someone clips a power line or clips somebody's car or anything along those lines, that is associated with our contractor, they bear that liability.
Well, and that's $219,000 based on current contract.
Yes.
Current contract.
Yes. Yeah. So we will come back with updated numbers based on what we have with the RFP, because I do think it's still worthwhile to put one out. We're under no obligation to award an RFP just because we put it out. We can do it just to see, what are our options? And, is there a different way of offering this service that we haven't looked at in, a couple of years, and kind of address that from there. But this is a good start, and if you were to do 4 operators and 4 grapplers, it's $516,000 difference increase. So, and again, over current contract.
So we get better quality service, more control, all in. More cost, but quality of service.
So as of right now, our only proposal is that we continue to proceed with doing an RFP. And I believe that is actually still on our goals as well, eventually. It's on mine anyway, with regard to putting on RFP for yard waste to be able to get that to you guys, in addition to any of the other internal operations projects that we are currently working on with IT and customer service. So, are there any more questions?
No, thank you.
I want to say thank you because you guys gave me exactly what I wanted today, which was engagement and dialogue with regard to this, because we get to a point where we spin our wheels and we're almost too close to it to be able to see things, and we can anticipate what the citizens are going to expect from you. But hearing it in your words makes it a lot easier for us to come up with unique solutions that could solve problems that you're presenting to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Todd. While you're here, please convey to the workers of solid waste that we greatly appreciate the service that they are providing in our community. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
One of my drivers here, matter of fact, Tim works over there. Works over there.
John, thank you. All right.
Can we take an hour break?
All right, discuss revisions Discuss revisions to elected officials' travel and training policy to reflect updated travel information and per diem. Those are my reports.
Okay. All right, I did not actually draft a policy because I think in looking through this and looking through what the state has, I want to make sure that y'all are on the same page with each other and with staff and what you want to do. So what I want you to know is sort of what we currently have, what we mentioned at the workshop, and then where we're going, what I think may make some sense. So currently, you've got really a 2-page document that doesn't have very much to it, but I found some interesting things when I was reading back through it. It was last submitted in January of 2024. It says that we allow for educational training with our state or local affiliates, and they mention GMA, MEAG, and NLC, so National League of Cities, which we really don't do that much with, but we are a member of. It also says that we allow for travel for important city business, but it does not define what that is. And then goes on to say travel to congressional offices for any assistance on city issues, but we don't really do that much either. But what's interesting is that it limits the number of commissioners that are supposed to attend any particular events, with a couple exceptions. The two that it mentioned are Cities United and a GMA annual convention. It leaves out MEAG. But I think that that's sort of understood because you have MEAG in another location, so I think we need to clarify that. But then goes on to say that other training will utilize a rotating assignment of commissioners. So does that mean that if 2 of you go to this one, then you shouldn't go to the next one and 2 more should go? It really doesn't say. I went back and looked through agendas to sort of see how it worked in the past. It does seem that, a couple would go and the next couple would go and the next couple would go. There's exceptions to that because if you have to have training, mandated training, like Commissioner Fuller still has to do mandated training, then they have to go. So you can't say no to that in order to make sure that mandated training is met. After you get that initial mandated training, then the training that you get through Cities United and the annual convention is sufficient for what is required of you. So then what do we need to do? There's a couple of things that I think that I've noted. We need to add ECG because they weren't, I don't think, a thing when this first started because they split from MEAG and made ECG. So I think we need to clarify that. So we do that a good bit. I think it might help maybe to define important city business, although I'm not real sure what that is outside of training and then potentially going to the Capitol or the US Capitol. So what do we think that might be? And then if we're going to keep rotations, are we going to keep rotations? And if so, how are we going to define that? How do we determine that? And if not, then how do we budget? Operationally, we have talked about this a good bit since our workshop. I think we figured out ways to do it, but we need to sort of understand from your perspective how you want that to look. And so I'll sort of get through that at the end of this. So currently, what we're doing is we are calculating your mileage once you return. And we are saying, okay, you traveled to Savannah, or you traveled to Madison, or you traveled to wherever you're going general. And so we pay that mileage based on the current IRS rate. One of the suggestions that I think might be helpful is that we pay that mileage up front. Where you're traveling is not going to change. So we know what that amount is going to be. And so that's an easy thing, I think, for us to do operationally to say, hey, this is what they're going to be entitled to for that mileage, and get that paid ahead of time. The change that we've already made based on some of these conversations is that previously when you were checking into that hotel, the city credit card was on file for your room, but they were asking you for your personal credit card for incidentals. We've already started telling hotels, hey, the incidentals go on the city credit card. If there's something that needs to be reimbursed after the fact because it's not eligible for an expense, then y'all have reimbursed that after the fact.
Wait a minute, so I can't watch streaming stuff?
I don't know, I don't need to know what you
The
do in
city is
your
going-
own hotel room. So yes, if there's something that comes back on your incidental that shouldn't have been there, then you could pay that back through your reimbursement. But what we sort of talked about at the workshop, and then I think we're sort of end of the day, and Drew made a comment at the end that I'm not sure that everybody understood, so I wanted to bring this sort of in this fashion before we actually wrote out a policy. What we currently do is a reimbursement after the fact. And you all, as of 2024, are set up on the same rates that the employees are set up on the personnel policy. So right now, you receive a certain amount of money for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So $15 for breakfast, $25 for lunch, and $35 for dinner. Receipts are required based on your policy, your travel policy. We also, though, include any kind of parking charges that you may have, any kind of car services, so you have to get an Uber or a Lyft somewhere. If you pay for a bellhop or a SkyCap or similar services like that, that is allowed and would be reimbursed. What is not allowed is alcohol or, ironically, streaming services. And then spouses or other guest charges are not something that the city will reimburse. That's the current policy. What we talked about at the goals workshop is a per diem, which would be $100 per day for the full conference days. And then y'all talked about $55 on the first day of travel and the last day of travel, because normally that's getting there that night, checking in to start the conference day that morning, so you're not gone a full day. And the normally last day is leaving, mid-morning or lunch and coming home, so you're home, mid-afternoon. You mentioned not requiring receipts, and then the per diem potentially paid in advance of travel so that you have the money once you're there. I think best practice-wise and some of the things that we have learned from our own experiences and the things that we have learned from citizen comments, if we give you $100 per diem, and then we're saying, are we going to change what you are allowed to spend that on? And if so, how are we going to prove that? Or if you don't spend it all, because the current policy is $75, which, everything's expensive, so you might be spending more than that, you're only getting $75 back. But how do I know if you spent it on what you're allowed to? Does it matter? So I guess I just sort of need to know from you all, if the concern is being able to, making sure that we pay for what we can while we're there, maybe the better thing to do would be to do mileage up front, and that way you've got that ahead of time. It might make it easier from a staff perspective operationally as well. And then you still get your reimbursement for your stuff that you bought while you were there based on what's required and what's allowed and disallowed once you turn in your receipts for that stuff. I don't know. I guess I'm asking for some feedback.
I would like to see receipts still be required.
Okay.
Only maybe because of, DM doesn't cover parking and car service, because we know sometimes we have to pay for parking because it's mandatory. And that's expensive on our part, and that would be still something that we need, I think the city still needs to cover because of that, but as the new proposal doesn't state any of that.
Well,
That's including your hotel room.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, they still need to be documented.
Well, the per diem normally per diem is more meal expense,
Right.
so we can specify that. But I guess the bigger question for
And
me
that
is.
comes under the incidentals, I think, the part. Normally, yeah, but I guess it can go somewhere else. Me personally, I would like to see receipts. I think receipt is okay. My bigger concern is, and you covered both of them, is the hotel incidentals and the mileage going down and coming back. I think that upfront expense, or knowing that ahead of time, would be great. And the receipts, I'm with Commissioner Fuller. I think we need to turn in the receipts, and that way no one is ever accused of taking advantage of the taxpayers' money that is being used for its purpose, intended purpose. And you got a way of proving that. But the paying it up front for the mileage and the incidentals on the hotel, that way I'm not required to put up my credit card. I know a commissioner who's sitting up here with us now, putting up her credit card, and she's been on the board a long time, and they held her money for over.
They charged me for the hotel fee.
Charged the lady for the hotel fee and held her money for close to a month. So that, that kind of stuff, she's rich, I'm not. I wouldn't be able to handle that. So I like the idea of being able to have the incident that I don't have to use my credit card to stay. But the receipts, I think,
Okay. So if we, I think I'm hearing most everybody says they don't have a problem with receipts.
so yeah, the $100 a day is fine. I mean, that just gives you the ability to spend up that much, but you have to present a receipt for it. And if you don't spend $100 a day, that's great.
Yeah.
That's admirable.
Because if you end up getting email there, that's
Yeah.
been provided for
Right.
lunch,
The
for
meal,
training,
yeah.
things like that.
Right.
Right, you're fine. But if you choose to spend $100 and you got the receipts for it, I think that's perfectly fine. But in the event that you don't, it's great to
So you get reimbursed for what you spend.
get reimbursed for what you spend.
And we still like the reimbursement rates the way they are.
Please believe it.
Okay.
And we like the $55 day for the first day that you're allowed to spend up to $55. As long as you bring your receipt.
Okay.
And then you reimburse it. Everybody good with it?
So we're not separating out breakfast, lunch, dinner. We're just saying $100 per day, however you do it. And then we'll also, though, to Commissioner Wright's point, sort of specify that the parking, car service, all that is still included, is not included in the $100, but still included in allowable
Yes.
Right,
expenses.
that way,
Okay.
that way we're being transparent.
Right.
Because if somebody comes up and says something, we just need to be transparent on everything now.
And it's set, so the last thing here is the travel advance form, which this will change a little bit if we're gonna do the per diem in advance and just do the mileage in advance.
Mhm.
And I'll get with Deborah to see what all she wants us to do. We can still probably use this and just do the mileage, but it'll go ahead and show what we expect, sort of like your travel request form, which I don't even think y'all see most of this. It does go on your agenda. It goes on, there's 2 on the agenda tonight for Commissioner Fuller and Commissioner McCord to go to ECG. So we can sort of figure out how that works. You wanna go ahead and talk about that?
Well, no, I kind of want to go back one slide to, I got a little lost here with y'all. If you're gonna require receipts for meals, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Then it is not a per diem.
Right.
In the sense of what a per diem is. So you're gonna require receipts, but you're gonna say we're allowing up to $100 a day
Yes.
for meals.
Yeah, rather
It's
than
not a
separating.
per diem.
Not per diem.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, the reimbursement
That's
limit is rather
we
than.
just-
Okay, so we're gonna increase that.
We talked about, like, sometimes, like, if you don't wanna drive your car, you're going somewhere, take Uber. Is that something that's gonna be covered?
That's always been covered. It says car services.
It's always been covered, how?
Well,
Yeah.
it's in your policy currently.
Still got to turn the receipt in.
This is that term.
Have it for reimbursement.
Okay,
I
so
think
it's-
it means, like,
that's
once-
gonna be a part of what's under that.
I think it means like once you're there, not I'm gonna take a
Once
car
I'm there,
service.
uh-huh.
Yes, like when we're in
Yeah, that's what I'm
Savannah,
saying.
if you wanna take an Uber out to Tubby's or wherever, you can do that.
Okay,
That's
so
always,
that's different, that's gonna be different. That's
it's in there now.
You just haven't because you're rich. You never thought about that stuff.
So, okay, but if I drive my car,
You can report it as mileage.
because we get a standard cover rate for mileage.
Well, you can add that as to.
We don't know what you drive, when you're there, how much you're driving, so we don't have that. All we can add for your travel expenses is from here to there and there back. But if you use your car while you're there, you'd have to give us that mileage.
The mileage, okay. I'm not gonna go all the way for
Are we all good with this?
Yes.
Okay,
Has staff got the direction they need to finalize the policy?
Yes, sir. So that's just a policy that y'all will adopt our resolution, probably, I guess, is probably how that needs to go.
Okay.
They've done it before. And we can bring that at the next meeting.
All right.
So,
Next
for
item
two of you that
is
traveled
present
before
the
then.
2026 citywide annual goals and objectives.
Mike, can you change it to the annual?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Going back. For, how does this fit in for, because I know it's, but additional training, what about the additional online classes that GMA offers now, they've started to offer more.
Good
Is
question.
there a limit on that, or can we?
Well, that's a good question. I'm glad you brought that back up. We have noticed y'all have traveled more lately, which is fine. And we try to make sure budget-wise, we expect to have, a couple people want to go to spring training, a couple people want to go to fall training. But it has increased, so do we just need to expect, how do y'all want to handle that? Because right now, I don't know that y'all really follow the policy.
We want to increase the budget to allow commissioners to be more educated, to go to training.
A lot of senior commissioners that have taken all of the training might potentially want to go. But I think that probably what we should focus more on are the newly elected under 4 years, that opportunity to get the training that they need.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think
and I'm close to being done.
Oh my God,
Yes.
36 years.
Hey man, some of us can't graduate on that.
And Mayor, just so you know, Commissioner Murray asked a good question that I forgot to follow up on about sort of the rotation and how we decide who gets to go where. And Ms. Ward suggested, and I think everybody agrees, that those that are more newly elected would be sort of the primary focus versus those that have been on the board longer. But we always sort of make sure to budget for a couple for spring training, a couple for fall. We, add in the increases in conference registration, all of that as we go through budget. So we'll continue to put them on the agenda as we do now, which is required in the policy for y'all to approve. If it comes to a point where there is a budget issue, we'll make sure that we note that. Yeah, but I think it hasn't been a problem so far.
Training is good.
Training is good. Okay, moving on. All right, so Mayor made a good point this year that we set all these citywide goals, and now it used to be that we set ours before you all, so you got to hear our citywide goals before when we came to y'all during your goals workshop. But last year we did it the opposite, and I think that's how it should be. So we got to hear your goals and objectives, which help us better define our goals and objectives. And so I wanted to make sure that y'all knew what those were, because we did that on February 11th. And then we sort of went over them last week in staff meeting, and so these are fresh off the press for you all to know sort of what we intend to work on. Some of you I've already talked to about a few. Commissioner Curtis called me last week to say, hey, what about that pocket park, which we are already working on. So I wanted to go through them very quickly and sort of give you an understanding of what we want to do, because there's some stuff on the agenda tonight that will be one of these citywide goals. So first, the assets and inventory of the Main Street area. So downtown, but everybody calls downtown something different, so we're actually going to use the Main Street map to do this area to say, what do we have down here, why is it here, and does it need to be where it is? We get a lot of requests for this bench to be moved to over here, or this planter not to be here, or this crosswalk needs to go over here, or this light pole needs to be right here, or why don't we have a banner on this one and we have one on this one, so on and so forth. And when we get those, we don't even know at times why they are where they are. So we need to inventory that. GIS already has a lot of that in their system, but I'm talking about down to the plant, because what we have learned is that through our LCI, through some of our other work that we have done, a lot of it didn't go as it should have. So you've got this planer right here in front of Angela's with a massive boxwood in the center of it that looks ridiculous. And I don't know why. And it's not on the LCI plan that way. And so why is it there? Does it need to be there? We had a UGA student come in and give us a huge landscaping plan, which is great. But let's be able to tell our citizens this is why the bench is going to go there, and not have to willy-nilly pick and choose between two businesses that one wants and one doesn't. And so we know from a city's perspective why things are where they are. So that is the first one. We will have all of that done by June 30th, and then we will actually have a committee put together to say this is where it needs to be and this is why it needs to be there, and so here's your answer moving forward. The second goal that we have is to enhance our community amenities. This is almost always something listed in this fashion. The first one listed is the District 2 Pocket Park. So we want to determine a location by the end of March, have a design established by the end of July, and then host a naming and groundbreaking ceremony by the end of September to be able to do construction and host our first event this time next year, which would be Arbor Day, which we just celebrated last Saturday. So we hope to get all of that done in that time frame. Secondly, we need to decide some kind of pool action plan. We want to determine a possible location by July 1, And then we've got to figure out what does that design look like, what is capital funding, maintenance and operations funding, and then the potential community partners that we may have by the end of the year so that next year we can move forward with actual construction and see what that looks like. I actually was reading back through some minutes from a discussion with you all from October, and there was still some confusion from my end as to are we doing a seasonal pool, or are we doing an annual pool? So I think there's a lot more that we need to decide. That may depend on what it looks like location-wise. I'm not sure, but we have been actively talking about that already. So we can make some big strides in what we decide we're going to do with that this year. Third is the police department precinct near Moore Elementary School. Chief Strickland has already been talking about that and working with Brian Haynes with GIS to figure out what that location will be. We're trying to look at properties that either we already own, the land bank owns, something along those lines. There's a good bit between Moore and Atkinson that I think are potential viable projects. It'll depend on what we find as to what kind of contract we would need to enter, whether that's a rehab of a current structure, a tear down of a current structure, rebuild, or just vacant land that we need to start from scratch. But we want to have that sort of under contract and ready to go by the end of the year because it has worked out so well for us at Ann Street that we're ready to do a second one.
Can we tie the park and the precinct together so that you've got eyeballs?
I don't know, probably not if you want it next to Moore, because that's not District 2, once you get up that way. Evaluate compensation, so this review is an ongoing problem. We have asked directors, it's budget time as y'all know, so they have already been putting in their position requests, their reclassification requests, certification requests. So all of that is due to Ms. Woods by February 25th. She and I have already sat down once and looked sort of at what has been coming in as well as pay plans that she has gathered from other cities. Unfortunately, we are drastically behind again. The minimum pay rate for our lowest grade is $15. The next lowest one that we have found so far is $17.79. So that's a big difference. And when you start sort of going up from there, that's a big difference. So we will be coming back to you with something at budget time to sort of get that back to where it needs to be. Some of the positions are okay. It looks like sort of once we get past the middle of the grades, it gets a little better. But we will be looking at raising that minimum and then figuring out those percentage differences amongst grades from there with that information from, of course, our comp cities that we always look at. Business process review. This is sort of the biggest one that we've talked about. Solid Waste Solutions started us off this past year with that, and they are in here as well. But Give and IT have their work cut out for them this year because we realized how much software implementation can help us. One of it you heard already from Kelsey and Todd. Scale It is our software system that we will be putting in to help us actually manage who comes into the landfill, who comes into the transfer station electronically, and that way we can also take electronic payments and get away from cash. The second one is ViewWorks, which we already have. That is sort of our inventory system now. Customer service needs to go live with that in order to actually become that customer service department for all of our utilities to help with solid waste services as well. So we will have that implemented with them by September 30th. OpenGov is something y'all have already approved as well. That's for planning and development, particularly code enforcement, but also pretty much all of their services, tax and license as well. And customer service, we'll be using that too. That will allow for a lot more out in the field work, so they're not having to come back into the office, a lot more case management from a code enforcement perspective. So efficiency, timing will be greatly improved there, and that will be implemented by September 30th. And then lastly, for software, OpenGov will be implemented with solid waste by the end of the year. So a lot of sort of software services that will streamline, hopefully, our workflow and our ability to serve our citizens.
Do we do a lot of that in-house, or do we have TPAs for?
Implement the software?
Yeah.
IT does all of that, but they have to do it in conjunction with the software provider. So we have to budget for all of that implementation cost. All of that is approved normally at the time that you approve the contract. So a lot of times you'll see on your agenda item that the first year of the contract is a lot more expensive because of that implementation cost. But yeah, there's normally a systems admin that is assigned to each software, and so they get very familiar with that particular one, and they get to implement all that and then be the person that helps us with it if we have problems. Another big one that we wanted to just sort of point out is the solid waste solutions, which you heard today. So we've gotten your decisions back, so that's very helpful. We'll adopt the new ordinance by the end of March, as you've heard. Complete the dumpster inventory. That is still a manual process, ongoing. I don't know that it'll actually be done June 30th because I don't think that we know where dumpsters are. So we're just going to have to say, we're done. Here's the information. And then when people call and say, hey, you haven't picked this up, or hey, where's my dumpster? We'll be able to add it to it then. And then also on June 30th, we want to figure out what's yard waste. So we can decide, put out that RFP, bring it in-house, whatever we want to do there. So still a lot to do with that, but definitely after today, I think everybody feels a lot better as to what direction we are moving and can make that happen. Another financial policies we've been talking about for quite some time. There's several things that will happen there. You approved us to buy new financial software because ours is actually sunsetting. So Tyler Software has been working with Deborah in Finance for a few months now. We're going to complete an ordinance update for that by June 30th. We'll have a draft policy that will go out to the directors by the end of October, and that will sort of help us with those workflows now that they will be more updated into software. And then we'll have to get their feedback because of what all that might change, and then we'll finalize that policy by December 31st, create electronic templates for RFPs and purchase orders, and then also create at least 50% of that digitized workflow by the end of the year as well. So now if I'm out of town or something, then they're waiting on me to get back to sign a PO. Now I will just come through my email or whichever system, and I'll just be able to sign it that way so we don't have to wait on people actually being here. You've heard of Samsara a little bit today as well from Todd in Solid Waste, but it actually encompasses the entire city. But how we have managed that, we sort of implemented Samsara in a knee-jerk bad situation from a couple years ago, if you remember what that was. And so we put it on a lot of stuff because we wanted to make sure we knew where our stuff was, but then as we've gotten rid of stuff and as we've bought stuff, we haven't really had a policy as to what it goes on and what it doesn't. So we need to know what it's on currently, and we're going to start with vehicles because we've got over 800 pieces of vehicles and equipment. So we're going to start with vehicles first because those are the things that are used most frequently, and then determine what has it and compare it to what current vehicles we have by the end of March. After that, we want to discuss the policies to say, okay, if this vehicle doesn't have it, why? Pretty much every vehicle in the city needs to have it. Well, does mine? The city manager's Explorer for my office sits in the parking deck 300 days out of the year, probably. And the 65 days that we might use it, it might be for a couple hours to go pick up something and bring it back. So do we need to pay $50 a month for Samsara for that? Maybe, or then the question becomes, do we need that car, or should we just borrow somebody else's when we need to use a car? And so should we have more of a fleet pool where I need to go to fleet services and say, hey, I need a car for this day, make sure I have one for the morning. And it's not that we're renting it from Enterprise, but I'm going to get it from fleet for the day. That's a big discussion and potentially a big change in how we handle operations, especially once you start talking about backhoes or dump trucks or whatever else that may sit on yards for a lot of times and then we use them that one day. So that's something that we will be talking throughout the year, but starting with vehicles first, and we'll have those policies adopted by the end of the year as well. A couple other business process reviews, that vision for Griffin Utilities, I think that will come into play a good bit because with breaking out customer service as a department and saying, hey, you come here, customer, and we'll help you with anything that you need, is a big deal and a big change rather than coming in and saying, hey, go upstairs for water, go to solid waste for your roll off. So what does that look like? How do we want to tell people where Griffin Utilities? And so Jennifer has a lot of stuff to work on there, Danielle as well. So, we've got to figure out what that is before we can market it. So they'll work on that this year and then work on that marketing aspect towards the end of the year. And then also in that regard, what does project coordination and communication look like amongst utilities and then amongst public works and then to our public? We sort of learned from Ells Way's perspective, that big project, from the Hamilton Kincaid perspective, how do we tell our citizens? And sometimes we don't, and I don't know that that's a good idea. Now most of our citizens are not engineers, so we're not necessarily saying, hey, come out here and help us design this project, but getting input and then also letting them know this is when it starts, this is what we're doing. I don't want to throw together a town hall the day before we're doing it to say, here's what we're doing, and then feel as though they're just having to be told at the very last minute. So what does that project coordination look like? What do those updates look like when we say, we're starting the project today, but yet, nope, we gotta wait, and we're gonna start a week later. How do we get that information out to our community? So Danielle will coordinate that with Jennifer, and then also Marisa from a utilities and public works perspective, moving forward. And then lastly, development ordinances are a big hot topic. Of course, y'all know data centers, we did issue a moratorium on those, but we do need to provide some kind of development ordinance as far as data centers go. We don't know what that's gonna look like yet, but we do have planning development, utilities, and Kelsey are working through all of that, as well as economic development and telecom, to figure out what that will look like. We will present it to you at our April workshop for adoption by the end of June, is our hope. And then also, it is time to rewrite the Unified Development Code. So that was done several years ago, almost 20 years ago, I think now, it's 2008. It was done by a consultant, which is fine, but the consultant seemed to take the UDC, is what we refer to it as, sort of on its own and not really look too much at our code of ordinances. And so we've got some inconsistencies that we've tried to correct as we've gone throughout the years, but it's sort of time for a complete overhaul. And it's also real close to comprehensive plan update time. And so our comprehensive plan relies heavily on our UDC. So we would like the consultant to do both. We think that would be very helpful for them to look at that at the same time. So Michelle will be working on that over the next few months to get that going. Comp plan is due 2027? 28.
So been that long already?
Yeah.
We just did it.
And there's one thing that I was supposed to add to there, because we said it's a citywide goal and it's on your agenda for tonight. But you all, with the Griffin Gives Back campaign that was initiated last year, this year's Griffin Gives Back campaign will be the Union Cemetery at Grandview and Placid. So that's actually going to be one of our enhanced community amenities. I think the historical significance of that cemetery, the complete disrepair of that cemetery, certainly warrants that to be a citywide goal that the entire city works on. So Kelsey will bring that to you tonight with a resolution. The first thing we gotta do is declare it abandoned, and then we will move forward with potentially some goats and some equipment and all kinds of stuff. So that's another one that we'll tackle this year. Any questions?
Excellent job. All right. Item 5.
Oh, yeah.
Consider executive sessions per OCGA section 501421 for the purpose of consulting and meeting with legal counsel pertaining to pending potential litigation, settlement, claims, administrative proceedings, or other judicial action brought on to be brought by or against the agency or the officer or employee or in which the agency or any office or employee may be directed on. The motion, Ms. Murray with motion, second by Commissioner Ward. All in favor? Ms. Murray.
Red sir, sorry, you hit the wrong building. I let him. Yeah, I got it. I'm gonna say
What's up, big dog? All right. Man, what? No English. It's been
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome.
Oh, man. I'm trying, man. What's that? I'm trying.
Tim said he'd be willing to serve on my time holiday leave. Yeah, I've actually sent it to Stephanie and I was asking him to do that, but he wouldn't like to. I do.
Oh, Lord.
I know, I bet.
Yeah, we had a dumpster on fire.
Oh, okay.
Kelsey, are you coming back?
Yes. I know it needs to be done, but I'm gonna call that problem for next year. We're doing vision.
What's going on with you?
All got sued with me. Makes us feel better. Everyone's name is with me. They just be by themselves.
What if it's still cold outside?
It is. That's gonna be 50 today. It's gonna be.
First by Light, second by Ward.
Fuller.
I'm sorry, Fuller. I'm already in office.
It's all
It
right.
was Fuller.
I'm sorry.
Doug, it was Fuller.
You're right. I'm just,
All right.
I gotta be somewhere.